I adapted this into a tattoo. At 13, I got into billiards. I understood the value of money. My parents told me, do what you want, and we can say whatever we like. It's a gambling sport. Sometimes I hang out with the group, someone says something, and then I just leave because I feel bad. In 2 weeks, I earned enough for the down payment on an apartment. I do this job. You can earn $1 million plus, they have that too. It's not the best strategy. Maybe it's actually better not to invest all the money I saved for an apartment into crypto, but now I'm about to put it all into crypto.
All symbols and signs have a certain power.
How does that affect a person's life?
My fate changed after the tattoo.
Damn, the design is so. I have a very popular client. He's really into tattoos.
A way to remove it completely so that a clean patch of skin remains.
Tattoos are very hard to remove. Well, it's not a clean arm. It's obvious that something was there.
I welcome you to this podcast. My name is Trish, and today I have a very interesting podcast with a wonderful, beautiful girl. Her name is Darina. She is a tattoo artist, and this girl is not only beautiful but also smart. I've already had the chance to talk with Darina. We're even friends now, you could say. In this podcast, I'd like to reveal more about her because her life experience is really interesting. Darina is 26 now, but at just 17, she was able to buy herself a car, earning the money on her own. At 19, she bought her first apartment, and at 21, I think, right? The second one?
No, at 24.
At 24, okay. But just... she's a girl with an entrepreneurial streak and an interesting upbringing. I think her parents also instilled certain values and meanings in her, which is why she was able to achieve so much at such a young age. And I'd like you, Darina, to tell us about yourself. How did it happen that you were able to buy a car at 17 and an apartment at 19?
Those are really impressive achievements for that age. Well, I was always motivated. I wanted to afford a good standard of living for myself, the kind my parents couldn't provide. I just wanted comfort to be able to buy the clothes I wanted, to eat out at some cafes. So I was probably motivated by necessity. At what age did that start? Well, I was probably first motivated back in early childhood, around the age of 4. My mom said she would give me an allowance on Saturdays. Back then, it was 10 rubles. And she motivated me by saying, save it up if you want, and then you can buy things we can't afford to get you. And if you misbehave, we'll take away your allowance. So I guess that's when I developed the habit of saving up for myself, setting something aside so I could afford things later. That's how it was. Later on, I just didn't stop. I started working, doing little odd jobs, probably from the age of 8. At first, I would run around selling balloons in the park. Yes, I was 8. That was in Yekaterinburg, in Chikhalov Park. And on weekends, everyone was happy to buy because there were real festivities going on there. Then my dad invited me to the city of Armil to watch over the trampoline and collect money from everyone. So for me, it was kind of an interesting experience because there I was, 9 years old, just sitting there, and people kept bringing me piles of money. I didn't even have enough bags to hold it all. City day with a trampoline. That's actually a pretty good story. So moving on from there, I just started working at advertising agencies of all kinds when I was 12. At first, it started with handing out flyers, and then I moved on to working at various in-store tastings, standing there. But honestly, I really suffered at that kind of job. I truly felt what it was like to work under some boss, under people who, well, weren't exactly pleasant to communicate with. They were constantly lying, and basically I was wasting a ton of time I was spending that time, but I wanted to study. I really wanted to spend a lot of time doing things that interested me. And at that time, I was interested in drawing. I was studying at art school. And at the same time, I was also attending music school. So I was simply interested in finishing both art school and music school. So basically, at the same time, I wanted to have some pocket money because for me that meant freedom. Moreover, in 5th grade, I was transferred to a school where the students came from wealthier families than mine. And somehow I tried to catch up to that level myself so that I would at least get a little bit of respect. Well, basically, I think that shaped who I am. And then when I was 15 and already preparing for admission to become an art teacher, specializing in easel painting, it was a very challenging department, and I wanted to get in on a scholarship, specifically because at that time it was quite an expensive education, especially for my family. And basically trying to juggle work like that juice tasting job, which paid 130 rubles an hour, and preparing for exams, it was really tearing me apart. And then actually at one wonderful moment when during that same period, I was performing and someone offered me to paint a flower on a wall and paid me 5,000 rubles for it. For me, that was an incredible amount of money because you can't really earn much at 130 rubles an hour. At that point, I really got into it, did some painting, got a huge amount of enjoyment, and also some feedback from the apartment residents who had asked me to do it. All in all, I was absolutely thrilled, and I finished the painting in just 2 days. And then right away, I was invited to talk at a tattoo parlor. At some point in 10th grade, I started drawing a girl. Just on my own, I was coming up with some techniques since I didn't know much yet. I didn't know about canvas techniques, how to stretch canvases, how to prepare them. In general, I didn't know any of these materials. They didn't really talk about that in art school. So basically, I just started on my own using trial and error, working with completely mixed media. Yep. And I ended up with a picture just supposedly for my Instagram. But then it turned out to be really useful. Well, I don't know. It was like a portfolio in a single piece. So just from that one picture, the studio directors understood what I could do with my hands. And at that point, I was only 16 and they offered me a job. They said, "You draw better than the tattoo artists we have here." They said, "Come on, you'll sit here and start drawing sketches for us, and we want you to work with us." And I was like, "But I'm only 16." And they said, "The main thing is that you draw well, just work." And basically, people won't ask how old you are, and if they do, we'll just say you're older, it's fine. So, in general, that just changed my life. That was in 2015. And that year, I also got into university on a scholarship. I made it. At the same time, I was offered a job, and I got really excited about it. And back then, this was almost 10 years ago, studios were relatively commercial. I'm really grateful to that studio for everything it did for me. You could say it raised me, but it was focused on making money, and we were motivated by money there. They even had rankings there showing how much each master earned, like last name amount. And that actually created some not so healthy relationships between the masters and the salon. But in a way, that suited me even more because, well, first my parents motivated me, then my school environment, and later my job motivated me. Here at the salon, they started motivating me to like work harder. I clearly remember sitting with the salon director and he asks, "Do you want to earn 100,000 a month?" I was like, "What?" "Yeah, of course I do." He says, "Well, then go ahead, start working, just put in the effort and work." And we had an agreement that I would combine all this with my art studies at university. There were so many classes and homework assignments. If you didn't submit your work for the exhibitions, well, for example, there were 2 exhibitions per semester, so 5 exhibitions a year. You had to submit each one with a huge volume of work. There were compositions, drawing, painting, tons of homework. If you didn't do that, you would simply be expelled. So basically, I had to work at the same time, and my motivation was money. Although at that time, to earn 100,000 from tattoos, I was doing 2 sessions a day. So when was I supposed to do my homework and attend classes? So in general, I started working very, very, very quickly. Basically, I started doing everything fast, not just doing tattoos quickly, but I just became kind of sharp and intense in everything.
Did the quality suffer because of that?
No, actually, as I was studying, my quality was improving. So I started working as soon as I entered my first year. Of course, I started from the basics there. And back then, the tattoo industry wasn't as developed as it is now. We were working with coil machines there. So basically, my artistic journey started in 2015. I started both working and studying at the same time, and my skills improved as I studied painting. So roughly speaking, there we were shading nudes on these huge canvases, big setups with a model, for example. We gradually worked our way up to that too, studying forms, anatomy, every single bone, learning how to construct all of it. And I just diligently kept working at it, consistently training my hands so much that graphic design work just became second nature to me, almost instinctively.
A printer?
Yeah. Later on, I would just show up and my hand would just naturally fall into place when drawing or painting. And I simply adapted that to tattooing. And I would just show everything, film it all. Here I'm studying, here I am at work. Look, I did this. And also, here I am just being present. And for some reason, people started getting interested. I began to gather an audience, people started following me. I started to realize that this is just my thing, my way of expressing myself, like just the way I am and maybe the way I phrase jokes or even just simple pictures, photos with interesting composition. The way I arrange things, people found it interesting. And over time, all of this started to gain momentum. So basically, from my very first year working at 100, I was motivated by money. Of course, I saved up. I wasn't the type to spend 100,000 a month on myself. Because overall, I wasn't spoiled, so I didn't have the urge to buy things for myself. Expensive things or anything like that, I understood the value of money and I wanted to save up for something big. At the very least, I wanted to buy a small car just so I wouldn't have to carry all those canvases and heavy things around running back and forth. It really would have been tough if I hadn't bought myself a car back then. Well, yeah, it was all pretty amusing, really. Looking back, it's funny because I kept going and even the level of my purchases changed. Like I bought my first car at 17 and then literally replaced it a month later. Because I found out it wasn't in the best condition, so I traded it in for another one. And in just a day, I even managed to resell it for 50,000 more. Maybe it was just luck, good fortune, but also the car was really liquid at the time, so it all just worked out somehow. And overall, I always had this desire to earn money and to secure it somehow, to ground it, Yeah. I mean, I understood that some kind of business. I didn't want to start a business. I just earned money through my craft, through my work, and saved it up. And then it became clear to me how to preserve all this in real estate. At the very least, I could preserve this money at the current exchange rate by putting it into real estate. Later, its value would go up anyway. And when I eventually have some bright ideas at any age, I can easily pull the money out. By then, it will have beaten inflation and everything will be great.
How did you come to this understanding that it is necessary to freeze concrete?
In concrete, it was probably thanks to my parents because they once exchanged an apartment for my grandmother in order to move her. And they took an apartment in Dalyovka. There was about 1.5 million there. Probably it was so long ago in my childhood. I remember how we used to go there doing renovations and all that. And in fact, the apartment increased in value after it was finished. I don't remember exactly how long it was before they resold it or how the taxes worked out, but I do remember that they sold it for much more. Plus, we always lived there with my grandma and grandpa. Everyone was in debt. And I remember looking at that little apartment as a child, thinking, there it is, they made money. Grandma will live alone. So why are we all living in debt? We have grandma and grandpa, and yet. I just wanted to be free, to have some basic foundation for myself, to cover the basics. My parents spent their whole lives trying to secure that foundation, an apartment, a car. And it always seemed like that's all they worked for. There was never any time left for relationships, for love, for spending time together in an interesting way. And I always wanted at least to cover my basic needs, so I wouldn't have to think about them and could focus on other things, like being creative, expressing myself, traveling, building relationships with people, and just not being constantly anxious and needy like that.
That's a cool mindset you have. I mean, you were already thinking that way from such a young age. And, the way we think shapes the reality around us. So your thoughts basically led you to these results.
Well, yeah.
And now, this apartment you bought, do you still have it? Are you renting it out or do you live there yourself?
Yes, I still have it and I've rented it out.
So for you, it's an asset that also brings you passive income.
Yes, and I was actually really scared to rent it out because I realized that, well, the price of that apartment is basically just my work day, but still, somehow, it was just sitting there empty, and I realized that it was way too passive, so I needed to at least take that step to make it at least a minimal asset. So I ended up renting it out to some great girls. One of them is actually my student. I'm more or less at ease because I probably wouldn't have rented it out to just anyone from the internet, since I did every corner myself there. I designed the furniture myself, measured everything, and even designed the kitchen myself. I took a creative approach to the renovation. Yes, I did the bathroom renovation myself. I laid quartz vinyl on the floor right over the developer's tiles. I just stuck it on like that. Quartz vinyl there. But it turned out that I laid it between the seams on purpose, just so it would look like that. It actually turned out fine. I painted the walls myself, did the floor on the balcony, painted it, and did some simple decorative things. Basically, I made the apartment my own sanctuary, a place of strength, and every time I came back there, I started to really live. I was living between two cities, Moscow and Yekaterinburg, and every time I came back as an adult, for example, at 23 or 24, for 5 years I kept thinking, why should I feel down if at 19 I was able to give myself, well, the basics, this foundation? Why should I now feel discouraged and think that my opportunities aren't as great as they used to be? It's just that before I was really, really unstoppable. Even in my first year, a teacher came up to me and said, "Are you working?" I said, "Yes, you understand, right? But you won't be able to combine this kind of study with work and, well, with life in general." And I said, "Yes, of course." But then I immediately thought, who is truly going to buy me all the necessary paints and various canvases? You see, those particular art materials are certainly not what one would consider inexpensive or easily affordable. So basically, I completely pretended that everything they said, all of it, just went in one ear and immediately out the other, as if it never even registered. Well, perhaps in all honesty, it actually did just that. He was quite young, probably about 28 years old, maybe 20 something. I don't know what his reasoning was, but I still think he genuinely wanted to tell me that from the heart. He didn't mean to offend me, but still, since then, I've started to feel like people are just trying to hold me back or throw a wrench in the works, and I'm just here. Well, basically, I've learned to just. Well, I'm in a glass dome, just doing what I want, and you can say whatever you want to me, I'll just keep going. Just keep bending along my own path. I skipped a lot of classes because I was working at the same time. I just couldn't handle all that workload. Sometimes I just overslept. I very rarely attended classes, especially to go through a project from start to finish. I could even finish it at home just by looking at a photo. Basically, I cheated however I could, but I really did everything myself with my own hands, and I submitted my work in such a way that they didn't even expel me from the budget program. They just kept telling me that I was the worst student they'd ever had, and that one more wrong move and I'd be out of there for good. But they got me all the way to my diploma, and the paradox is that my diploma was supervised by the same teacher who, in my first year, told me I wouldn't be able to juggle everything. But I managed somehow. Well, it was tough, but I did it. And the diploma, actually, I really loved my diploma project. It was a large painting. I don't remember the exact dimensions, maybe a meter by a meter. Yeah. And for it, I had to prepare a cardboard draft. It's kind of a preparatory work at the same scale, just on paper. And it had to be done using tempera as the medium. I hate it. I always avoided working with that material. Anything acrylic or tempera, I might have even forgotten what it's actually called. Basically, for me, the best and most understandable materials are anything graphic and oil. Yeah. So that's pretty much it for us. The diploma work was supposed to be some kind of narrative composition. I said, I'm not going to do it. As a bad student, can I just do a still life? So they let me do a still life. And together with my teacher, he didn't actually teach any classes, he just took me on for the diploma project. Can you imagine? He was quite reserved with me, the only one in the whole group. He just made sure I was present, and I asked him for something. I said, let's switch the materials for the cardboard from that awful, hated tempera paint to more graphic materials. Well, in my opinion, I ended up with a great diploma project. I really enjoyed working on it, and it actually got top marks. They even took it to Moscow. Then my curator said, after I gave my diploma speech as she was leaving, well, she's an actress, really an actress. So, it was kind of like that. I didn't really get much support. They said I was a notoriously problematic student. Yeah. And at work too, while I was working at the salon, they put pressure on me, saying I had to be there from morning till night. What studies? I just threw up my hands. I can't be in two places at once. I'm not good enough for you at school, and I'm not good enough for you at work either. All right, then I'll just study and work. Say whatever you want. It actually worked.
So it turns out this kind of single-mindedness, this focus on what you enjoy and what feels good and valuable to you, you just kept going no matter how much the world tried to hold you back.
Yeah, because I was getting from it. Really, the kind of result that truly fulfilled me was profound and deeply satisfying. I felt an immense sense of importance, a genuine feeling of being truly needed by people, which resonated deeply within me. It was more than just a job. I felt like I was actively doing something incredibly meaningful, something that was, without a doubt, truly rewarding in every sense of the word. And I was doing it in such a way that people would naturally gravitate towards me, drawn by the quality of my work and the positive experiences of others. Word of mouth would spread organically and powerfully, with clients enthusiastically recommending me to their friends, family, and acquaintances. It was as if I was exactly where I was always meant to be, fulfilling a purpose that felt inherently right. This sense of destiny and belonging was incredibly powerful. Considering the extensive experience you've clearly accumulated, how many people have you actually tattooed over the course of your career? Do you have any specific statistics or approximate figures like that? Perhaps a rough estimate of the total number of individuals whose skin you've adorned with your artistry? It's a question that often comes to mind when reflecting on such a dedicated profession. I remember a specific period in my life when I was about 24 or 25 years old that I took the time to meticulously count and organize my records. It was a significant undertaking, and as I went through each entry, I realized with a sense of astonishment and pride that I had already completed more than 3,000 tattoos. This was a truly remarkable milestone, a testament to the dedication and passion I poured into my craft, and it solidified my commitment to this path. The sheer volume of work, the countless hours, and the unique stories behind each piece all contributed to this incredible number, making me reflect on the journey and the impact I've had on so many lives through my art. It was a moment of profound realization about the scale of my work and the depth of my commitment to the craft. Now I think it's probably around 4,000, give or take, but I used to work a lot more before I would actually take 2 sessions a day, probably around my third year. When I was studying, that was when I hit the peak of my popularity and bookings. My schedule was fully booked for a month with 2 sessions a day, and I was still managing my studies on top of that. But basically, because my style was so light and airy, and at that time I was using induction equipment, I had gotten so used to working with it that I could quickly create great, clean lines that healed perfectly. People started coming to me purely through word of mouth. It really took off. There were all sorts of rumors and gossip going around about how I was annoying other artists, but by that time I was already working alone and had isolated myself from all the public opinion I'm really not a fan of. I realized that I don't like working in teams because everyone there has their own opinions about everything.
Envy.
I don't know, it's just that whenever I sit in a group, someone says something to me, and then when I leave, I just feel bad. I realized that I need to isolate myself from everyone and just focus on my work in solitude. To communicate one-on-one with a person, I've been convinced of this so many times. I started different studios, sublet spaces, brought in various specialists, and every time either someone would agree to those terms, and every time after a fairly short period, I realized that was it. I couldn't do it anymore. I was already oversaturated. I didn't want to see people that often at all. I just wanted to be alone with my work. So basically, for the past 3 years, I've closed my studio, and now I work in Moscow and Yekaterinburg, flying back and forth. Now in Yekaterinburg, I have my own office, workshop. I set it up exactly the way I wanted so that I would feel comfortable. I've got a piano, a guitar, and an easel there. Basically, I brought everything I love there. The highest quality materials for tattooing, and I just work whenever I want to. No more rushing like before, because after all, this is a craft, it's physical labor. It's also a job that involves working with people. When I work with people, I need to quickly understand their inner state, their visual style, their exposure to art, and what they want. And from the initial reference images they send me, I have to guide them toward the brilliant design that no one else has done before and execute it with quality. How much time and money? I never spend hours chatting, drinking tea, going out for a smoke, like many artists who stretch their work over 8 hours. I never did that. I would think, okay, I can finish this job in 2 hours. That's it. I won't stretch it out to 4 hours. So that's basically it.
You value your time.
Yes, I do value my time, but over the past year, I think I've started to switch gears, or maybe I'm having a bit of a reset because this constant craftsmanship, this ongoing work, this working with people, it's not that it tires me out. I actually love it very much. But from time to time, I really need to rest, to go somewhere, to be alone, to switch off, to recharge. And then I want to talk again, to give, to create, to do tattoos, to communicate with people. Because, when I used to travel for work, Yekaterinburg, Moscow, while I was in Moscow, my schedule would get so packed that I was honestly just blown away because working thoroughly with 2 or 3 people a day and really having a proper conversation with each of them, for me, that's after working like that, I catch my breath, leave for Moscow, and it felt like I just run a marathon. I'd think, why am I even doing this? Why do I cram everything into such short time frames? I'd do 2 months worth of work in just 2 weeks. Honestly, it was just, by the way, there was this one time. I was 24 years old, and Basically, I ended up living in Moscow for 2 months. It just happened by chance. I hadn't planned it, and I rescheduled everyone. I grouped everyone in Yekaterinburg into a 2-week period. That's what I did. Some people canceled their appointments. That's it. So basically, I worked these 2 weeks really well, did a great job. And in 2 weeks, I earned enough for a down payment on an apartment.
How much is that?
432,000. I worked for 2 weeks, but I had 2 days off, so it was 12 days in total.
And realistically, without stressing too much, just doing this job, how much can you earn?
It depends on your reputation, on how much demand there is for you. So if you have good sessions, in other words, now I work much less, but I earn more simply because I set my prices according to the current market, roughly speaking. I can set my own price simply based on my experience, skill, reputation, and the client base that comes to me. The combination of these factors determines the price. For example, in Moscow, there are some top masters who charge outrageous amounts for a session and artificially create a fully booked schedule for a year. Yeah. And basically they don't work that much, but they make 1 million or more. Yeah. Because at some point they just worked a lot, built an impressive portfolio, made a name for themselves, and traveled to festivals. These really are top level masters, but most of the cool people I know in Moscow eventually just leave. They get tired of working, and then they only do it occasionally for the soul, but they still keep their current income. Yeah. Some people start doing other things on the side, like investments, just like I enjoy doing. I invest on the side as well. And there are masters who have also been working for over 10 years, have a great reputation, and make 1 million without much effort. And then they keep turning that money over, investing it, while everyone does their own thing. I started investing first in like real estate. That makes sense to me. And I always want to invest in real estate.
I thought you were going to say Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin too, Bitcoin as well. When I was 18, I was introduced to Bitcoin. And the place I was renting back then was this really cool penthouse. I worked there and I was only 18 years old. I invited 3 girls from the salon to work with me. Yeah. By the way, with them, I had my first experience of unpleasant collaboration, so to speak, because I was doing everything while they just complained. But that's not the point. Anyway, we worked in that place for about a year or two. And then one of my good friends at the time comes in and says, "That's it, take over this place, all the new subtenants are yours." And then he offered me a job.
Rent?
Yeah, he decided to rent it. And then he says, "We're going to mine here, we're going to do cryptocurrency stuff. Come over here. I'll tell you what we're going to do here. Join us." And I'm sitting there, I'm 18, I'm so open to everything new, just listening. And the way they told it, it was so interesting that I agreed. So alongside tattooing, I started getting a little involved with all this cryptocurrency stuff, but I quickly realized that it distracted me, took up my time, and wasn't as interesting to me as, say, the actual work process. The work process, investing in the apartment, yeah. At that time, it made more sense to me to just put money into a savings account with interest. That's it. And as for Bitcoin back then, honestly, the reason I didn't get into it was because I started to suspect it was just some made up thing, not really about exchanges. I didn't want to get into understanding exchanges, and overall, I just didn't fully dive into all of that. But the topic of cryptocurrency, of Bitcoin, never really left me. Yeah. So I'm more interested in altcoins. From time to time,
We'll talk about that too.
yeah, from time to time,
Do you have a portfolio?
I do.
Cool.
Yeah, I add to it from time to time. But I haven't dared to put in any large amounts yet. For example, I could ideally try to grow the money I have set aside for a down payment on an apartment. The kind of down payments I'm talking about, I don't even need a loan for. I would just take some of the money I've saved and try to grow it with those same altcoins, just playing the exchange rates. But I still don't really consider myself competent enough in this area. but I've always wanted to make big gains on altcoins. And sometimes I sit there thinking, that's it. I'm going to put all the money I've saved for the apartment into crypto right now. Like, I'm just going to do it. Then I hesitate, end up not doing it. The prices go down. Then I breathe a sigh of relief and think, phew, thank God I would have been sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was literally right up until New Year's. I wanted to make a certain move, at least buy myself some USDT. And then I was really, really, really glad I didn't do it, especially now. And even now, I'm still not sure about my decisions.
There's just this rule. When you invest, for example, a comfortable amount for you once a week, you pick a number of cryptocurrencies you want to have in your portfolio, right? And let's say you, well, hypothetically earn 50,000 a week, just as an example. You could buy yourself some crypto for 10,000 or even 5. So this is an amount that basically won't make a big difference for you, right? It's a small part of your income. That's it. But with a 2 or 3 year horizon, for example, you just make regular purchases. So you get your money, you buy some, send it to your cold wallet, and forget about it. And ideally, you should have something like CoinMarketCap, for example, or some app where you record exactly what you bought today and at what price. That's it. It's just that if you take a lump sum, say you've set aside 500,000, you just throw it all in at once somewhere. It's not guaranteed that this will be the best entry point, especially if you don't have experience. As you said, you're not a trader, you don't read charts and so on. But if you buy every week, you'll end up with some kind of average price. That's it. But you still need to understand that there are market cycles. And if you buy when the market has already grown a lot, that's not the best strategy. Maybe it's actually better not to invest in crypto at all, but to invest in buying apartments. That's it. But when the market is crashing and everyone is scared, everyone is getting out, and you start seeing headlines like crypto is dead.
Like now?
Well, yes, right now is the perfect time to buy, in my opinion. I do the same myself once a week. I buy.
I also feel that now is the perfect time to buy. So right now, I'm also slowly buying in. Well, slowly, for some reason, it's easier for me to just put in the whole lump sum at once. But I agree with you. It's a great strategy to buy in periodically with an amount you don't mind spending and to average in. It's an excellent strategy, and that's what I've started doing now. So yeah, with an amount I don't really notice that isn't particularly important to me. I just add to my wallet some altcoins that seem, well, quite promising to me.
I think you need Bitcoin too. I myself wasn't a supporter of that at first. I've been in crypto since 2016 and I bought my first Bitcoin for about $800. Then when it hit $1,000, it seemed to me that it was easier to make money on altcoins. And basically that's what I did and I made money. But now it seems to me that Bitcoin is just, even a way to preserve liquidity because inflation is insane and you can really feel it. You just go to the store, grab a couple of bags, and you end up spending anywhere from 5 to 10,000 just on groceries. That's just how it is. And every year this amount increases and it's noticeable. So Bitcoin, since it has a limited supply and it's hard to mine now, there have already been several halvings, right? And that's why Bitcoin, at least as a store of value, even though it might drop from 80,000 to 50,000 right now, but in the long term, over 3 to 5 years, I think it will continue this upward trend simply because it's limited. Unless, of course, it wasn't originally designed for a certain period.
And then it's a scam.
Perhaps someone is actually behind this entire situation, and at some critical point, it could potentially all completely collapse, or technology will reach a point where quantum computers plus neural networks will be able to
Steal money from wallets.
they will, well, basically, there are these private keys. They'll just be able to brute force them so quickly that essentially they'll be able to access people's wallets. And then obviously Bitcoin won't survive, but that's just in theory. Maybe someday it will happen, but with what we have now, where can you invest in alts? They don't all have a limited supply. So because of that, it's not guaranteed that they'll keep growing all the time. Plus, many alts are bought by funds, crypto funds at very low prices. And when all of this hits the exchange with large, sometimes even artificially inflated market cap, the funds are already in profit and 20, 30, even 50 times their investment. And what we're seeing now is that alts keep falling, 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 and falling. Even now, at current levels, when it seems like the market is already at rock bottom, these funds are still in profit, you know? For large capitals, even a twofold increase is already a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why it doesn't really make sense for them to pump these alts and let us make money. That's it. But we, as crypto enthusiasts, relying on the experience of previous cycles, when alts would fall and then make a big comeback, we keep buying, buying, buying. And so, in theory, I have this idea just as one of the possibilities that alts might not actually grow at all. Or maybe,
After the drop that's happening right now?
yes, they might just, so to speak, remain in this stagnation, just hovering around this level or slowly start sliding down. That's it. But some of them will definitely grow. So I'm not talking about all alts, right? You just need to look at the technology, what's behind it, who's behind these altcoins, and so on. That was just a little digression about crypto.
Very interesting.
Do you read books? Like Robert Kiyosaki, Cashflow Quadrant, or...
Yes, of course. I really love listening to those kinds of books in audio format. I'm absolutely obsessed, yeah.
So basically, in your chosen craft, as the dedicated owner of your very own thriving business, you've successfully learned how to effectively generate consistent cash flow and then wisely invest that accumulated cash flow as well, ensuring continued growth and prosperity. And because of that, the most important thing, your time gets freed up and you can focus on investing, enjoying life, traveling, right? It's really quite great that you have that kind of positive mindset. You are setting a truly good example.
Yeah. Well, I don't really broadcast my mindset to the masses. I just show myself, show my work. You know, I think I'd like to get back to a more active blogging format. Maybe for someone I really am well. Actually, I know I'm interesting to people, at least to those who are into my art, my tattoos. I just need to start talking a bit more again. I had a reset. I wanted some quiet time.
Let's talk about tattoos.
Let's do it.
I don't have a single tattoo. I take this very seriously. I mean, I understand that a tattoo is, well, like a stamp you can't erase later. And I've always thought I like it when people are covered in tattoos, especially when they have meaning. I like how it looks visually. I actually love anything out of the ordinary. But getting something inked on myself, I always wonder, what should I get? What meaning should I put into it? And how will it affect my life? Because I believe that all symbols and signs have a certain power. They are like arcana. That is, an arcana is like a tool for attracting a certain energy, a certain force. So I wanted to know, in your view, do tattoos also have this kind of esoteric meaning? When the mood of the person doing the tattoo is also important. With what intentions he does it, in what state of mind, because essentially he is crystallizing the image of his thoughts first and foremost, this drawing. And this will affect the person he is doing it for. But that's how I see the process. So I wanted to ask you, how do you do it? Do you put something into the tattoo? And does a person's life change after that? Well, as a tattoo artist, you probably could have tracked that somehow, gotten some feedback.
Yes, of course. Personally, I don't put any meaning into the tattoos. The meaning is put in by the people who come to me. They can just tell me their wishes in that sense, or simply show me some images as examples for the visual. Everyone has different preferences. Some people just want a visual image for aesthetics, while others want to convey a deeper meaning and try to synchronize a certain image with all of that. Everyone has different requests. It all starts with a conversation, looking at some pictures. I start to understand the person, what their inner request is, what their outward image is, what they want to present. Plus, I also have my own specific approach to work, my own technique, my own sketches. And only those who like what I do come to me. We synchronize my style with either their inner desire or simply the vision of their own image. And together we come to a unified decision, a sketch, and then we create it. That's it. How does this affect a person's life? In general, I believe that a tattoo is a very powerful, energetic moment for your body. That is, every time we do something for ourselves, for our body, it fills us in a certain way. Yes, of course, it's important what kind of thoughts you come with, positive or negative. What you wanted to put into that tattoo, that's it. But every time it brings people a huge emotional boost. When people leave after a session with me, they give me such feedback that I end up feeling incredibly fulfilled too. I can sit for 8 hours working, get extremely tired, my back starts to ache in the same spots over and over again. I get up, my joints crack, and people give me such joyful feedback that all my fatigue just disappears as if by magic. So basically, you can see it as an artifact for yourself, just as decoration or as an addition to your image. Like, I don't know, many girls get some kind of jewelry for themselves, then add to it, create a look, and place small but stylish pieces on their bodies. And it all looks very harmonious, conceptual, and it enhances the person. That is, a person consciously decides to get a tattoo and wants to strengthen themselves in some way, apparently in a way they feel they need to be strengthened. Maybe they want to create an image for themselves, maybe they want to give themselves some inner strength, or maybe they want to mark this stage in their life and move on. Everyone has different reasons. And overall, after 10 years of working with people, I feel like I can understand them from just a few words and start offering exactly what they need. I've never had a situation where someone told me like, the design is so. We arrive at the design step by step, and every time it's exactly what the person needs. So if you don't see tattoos as something for yourself and they don't hold any value for you, neither aesthetic, nor for your image, nor for any kind of spiritual strengthen, basically you just don't need them. That's it. But there are people who do need them. When clients leave me with their tattoos, I feel that I've done something important for them, something very powerful. They've given me a lot of feedback about it. I realize that I am needed by people, at least in my work. So, for example, knowing you, I could suggest to myself, say, some kind of artifact, some sort of symbol. Maybe it could be small. It could be like some kind of like a piece of jewelry. I know you like all sorts of, well, little patterns and decorations. It could be somewhere in a hidden spot. But for example, this tattoo will always remind you of a certain meaning. I even happened to catch a glimpse of your phone screen by accident. And I see that you bring yourself back to the present moment. And for some people, such tattoos can also bring them back to the present moment. You can imbue it with power yourself and make it meaningful for you, but at the same time, it's absolutely not necessary. If you ever feel the need for it, I also don't really get a lot of tattoos and don't want to, because I feel satisfied with how I channel my work through my hands. I meditate during this process, I just drift away.
Tell me the top, I don't know, perhaps one or two compelling stories about how, if it genuinely happened, people's entire lives were significantly and profoundly changed after getting a meaningful tattoo.
I only find out from those who come to me and tell me basically how things turned out for them afterwards. Overall, I have a lot of stories I could tell.
But are there any that are maybe your favorites or really stand out?
I can tell you about a woman who used to come to Mesh, was like 68, and then she came to me again at 72.
Interesting.
Such an energetic, awesome woman. She said, I need a sexy little flower. Yeah, she told me how she runs marathons, and she said, I have this thirst for life. I want emotions. And so she came up with a new emotion for herself to get a tattoo at 68 years old. She came in and got it done. And she's still running marathons. I think she's already over 80 now. Why not? Not over 80, almost 80.
Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of people come in after some emotional events and get powerful designs, and then they tell me how they really felt a sense of strength within themselves. Like, I don't know, a man gets himself some kind of aggressive sleeve, for example. Well, not aggressive, but more like strong masculine, powerful sleeve. Yeah, after some kind of turning point or major change in his life, he gets this work done. And you can really see during the session how he actually changes. You can just see the way he looks at himself in the mirror from the outside. I can tell, like, this is exactly what he wanted. This is his new image, his new self. Now I'm a completely different person. It's like, I just watch as a person starts a new chapter in their life. There are a lot of stories like that. And those who have been coming to me for years, I have clients who have been coming to me for 10 years. They tell me stories. For example, I have one client who does karate professionally. And he started coming to me back when I was just starting out 10 years ago. And he has a bunch of tattoos from me. He loves all of them. Just recently, I finished his sleeve, and he's honestly one of my most grateful clients. For 10 years, he's been coming and saying things like, wow, you do everything so well. Although, if you look at what I did on him 10 years ago and what I do now, there is a difference. But still, he's very positive and appreciative. And every time he tells me how much he absolutely loves tattoos, how they give him, well, this inner sense of self. Yeah. Plus, as I understand it, he's a blogger now. And, well, people also react to his image, to his tattoos. I have some really interesting clients in Moscow. These are quite popular people who work in show business, and they get tattoos that have a certain meaning behind them. At the same time, they get them all the time, different ones from me. And I realize, okay, this one has a really powerful message. And this one is just because, well, he had some free space here and needed to fill it with something. And sometimes, for example, I have one very popular client who gave me a really unusual brief for a sketch. I spent 2 weeks racking my brain because he's already pretty well covered in tattoos by the top artists in Moscow. And now he's put his trust in me. He gave me such a challenging brief. I keep looking at all his amazing tattoos and thinking, damn, I have to outdo them. So based on the brief, I created a sketch. He really liked it. We worked together. That's it. And actually, his whole image, well, it's really closely tied to his tattoos overall. And I think he'll just finish off his look and then stop. And that way, even his tattoos will make him recognizable. So I probably can't recall right now any one vivid story where someone's life completely changed. I could go through them. I've had so many clients, honestly. Sometimes it even happens that someone comes up to me, says hi, recognizes me somewhere, and I just look at them. I can't figure out who it is. Then they show me the work, and I'm like, oh, right, As soon as I see the work, all the memories of our session come back, and I think, oh, right, there was that day, and how much you've changed.
All right, let me ask you one last question. From a physiological standpoint, are tattoos harmful, beneficial, or neutral? Are there any cases where someone's condition got worse, like their skin or something? I don't know.
It definitely won't get worse, as long as everything is done safely, in a sterile environment, and with good quality inks. These days, the entire tattoo industry has advanced a lot in general. All the inks are very high quality now. Most of them are plant-based, natural. Black ink is actually perfect. There are never any reactions to it, no allergies or anything like that. Problems can happen if someone goes out with an open wound, and doesn't really take care of it, and then gets some dirt in the open wound. In such cases, there can be issues, but they're usually not serious either. Well, basically, I believe that tattoos are safe for the body because if done properly, the damage is minimal. It's not even a real wound. It's not a deep cut. It's just a light scratch that heals pretty quickly. If everything is done correctly and at the right depth, a person's immune system won't really be affected and will handle everything quickly. A tattoo will heal perfectly and look great for decades to come. It won't fade or fall out. Nothing will happen to it. You don't even need a touch-up after a properly done tattoo, at least with my technique and in my style.
And if, for example, someone regularly works out and significantly gains weight or substantial muscle mass, will the tattoo truly stretch and distort? It won't look the same anymore, right?
Well, look, a tattoo stretches along with your body. For example, if a girl has a tattoo on her stomach and she gets pregnant, let's say it's a flower or something, and as her belly grows, the tattoo stretches along with it. You know, like when you blow up a rubber balloon and the picture on it stretches and expands, and then when you let the air out, it shrinks back and the image contracts just like on the balloon. But there's also the issue of stretch marks. If someone gets stretch marks at some point in their arms or stomach, wherever the tattoo is, there won't be any pigment in those areas. It's essentially a kind of tear and it can be corrected. That's it. And also, it's important to think through the design. If you plan to double in size at some point, for example, some kind of abstract design on your arm, if it stretches a lot and you don't get any stretch marks, visually it won't change at all. And it will look like that's how it was meant to be, like it was designed that way. But if it's, say, a young girl's face done right here and your arm swells up quite a bit,
Well, obviously.
it would just look ridiculous. That's why you need to think through the designs properly from the start. In general, it won't cause you any discomfort in everyday life.
If, for example, someone gets a tattoo and 5 years later they decide, that's it, I don't want tattoos anymore, is there any way to remove it completely so that you're left with clear skin, or is covering it up the only option?
It all depends on the situation. In general, tattoos are very hard to remove, and in most cases, they don't disappear completely. If the tattoo is very black, dense, and deeply inkedif, there's just a lot of pigment and it's deep under the skin, and the chances of removing it entirely are very slim. That's how it is. At the same time, I think it's important to understand that a tattoo is for life. Removing it is extremely difficult, painful, and in the end, much more expensive than the tattoo itself. And there are no guarantees that it will disappear at all. You need to be conscious enough to get a tattoo to understand that it's for life, and not like when clients come to me and say, well, if anything, it can be removed, right? No, it can't. You really need to approach this very seriously and responsibly right now, and understand that, well, basically, there's no way back. The way back will be thorny, and then most likely there will still be either some correction or cover up. But honestly, to completely remove it to zero, I personally have never seen that in my life. Not once, not with a single person. I literally just saw this with a girl recently. She went through about 20 laser sessions. She had a tattoo inscription. That's an easy job to remove. Not some big, dense black pieces. By the way, lasers don't pick up some colors, they only see black. And in her case, they also scarred her, so she ended up with scars in some places. She still has some pigment left there too. Basically, when you look at it, it just looks like some kind of dirt. While her hand isn't clean, it's obvious that something was there. And who knows how much longer she'll have to go like this to get it perfect. I'd be interested to see at least one person whose tattoo was completely removed and whose skin stayed perfect afterwards.
In general, it seems that all the cells in the body are completely renewed every 7 years. And as for the skin,
It's a very interesting process. It's a very interesting process. We have our own specialized immune cells, and when foreign pigment enters the body's internal environment, these vigilant immune cells immediately rush over and firmly latch onto the pigment, diligently trying to break it down in order to effectively remove it from the system. I might be mistaken, maybe they're not immune cells, but in any case, these are the defenders of our body who immediately rush to the pigment, latch onto it, and can't do anything except hold it in place. So basically, they rush over to break it down and remove it through the lymphatic system. In other words, our immune system wants to get rid of all of these. And a paradoxical phenomenon occurs. These organisms, or
This protein.
yes. They just grab onto it like this and don't let go of the pigment, which is why it stays right under the skin, exactly in place. And if you don't overwork the skin there, if you don't go too deep so the tattoo doesn't spread out like this, if you go too deep, but if you deposit the pigment at the proper depth, these organisms will grab onto it so well that it will stay perfectly in place for years. High quality outlines, high quality graphic work after 20 years, it still looks amazing, truly beautiful. It becomes just a little bit blended with the skin tone. It doesn't scream for attention, it doesn't stick out. You walk along the beach and you don't have any blotches on your body. They're simply beautiful, neat lines that stay with you for years. They don't fall out or blur. And that's thanks to the skill of a good tattoo artist who did the work and to our bodies, which tried to remove it but couldn't. So it ended up staying. I probably should have explained this in a more professional way. I just forgot what those cells are called. Here, some kind of process. It's actually quite simple.
While we were talking, I got the idea to get a tattoo in this dimple.
Yes. This is a very interesting place. I can show you and even have a rough idea.
Do you know what symbol this is? Yin Yang.
Excellent symbol. And you know him.
Will it look okay here?
You can style it in a really cool way, so it's not just a regular yin yang, but make it so it doesn't stand out too much. Basically, you can play around with the designs. I really like these small tattoos that are kind of, like accent pieces, like a little seasoning, and it can be
Like kind of like a line, right?
yeah. Well, just
Something that highlights something, right?
like some small symbol placed somewhere. For example, imagine like here on this part, you could do some small pattern, for instance. And it just looks like some kind of decoration and it fits really well, even though it's unusual. Yeah. And I also like all those little things. I turn around and there's some small one here.
So is your tattoo only on your right arm or do you have more?
Yeah. By the way, about that topic I forgot earlier. I have a tattoo, but I have no desire to get covered in them. Because when I look at my work, when I work with people, I like to let it all pass through me. I meditate. It's kind of, for me, it's a very pleasant process. And when people come to get a tattoo, they look at the picture, project it onto themselves, try it on for size. That's what gives them pleasure. But for me, when I look at the picture, I get pleasure from imagining how I created it.
You like projecting onto others, not receiving it?
Yes. And besides, my visual experience is constantly expanding. I'm a visual person. I'm always looking at images just every day, all the time. And of course, I understand how much trends are changing. I understand how this whole story, the tattoo industry is developing. And I don't really want to do anything drastic to myself. I want to set trends for people, keep up with them, and create modern designs, current ones that are in step with the times and will always be relevant. That's it. In general, I think I'm truly an artist to the core. My mindset is already formed. I want to create, to make things, to look at them, and to enjoy it. It's like when we were in school, we'd finish drawing for exhibitions. Everyone would breathe a sigh of relief, hang everything up, and stand there thinking with satisfaction, oh, how beautiful. Thank you for not expelling us. And I get the same kind of satisfaction when I look at someone with a tattoo, but I don't feel any urge like, wow, what a cool design. I wish I could get that for myself. I don't feel that at all. When I see some awesome design, I just think, wow. You can create this set now with different designs, arrange it all like this, and post it somewhere on your social media. It'll catch on. Everyone will like it. That's where the satisfaction comes from.
That's where we'll wrap up. Leave your comments under this video. What do you think about tattoos? Do you have a tattoo? How has it affected your life? Or maybe it hasn't affected it at all. We'll be happy to read your comments. Thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining the podcast.
Thank you too. Thanks for inviting me.
It was interesting.
I really enjoyed it too. Thank you.